kiddos! Hi, my little learners! This is your fairy godmother, Miss Kitty. Are you ready for story time? Well, I sure am. Today we're going to read Banjo's Adventure, written by Angela Mudrick. Chapter 1. Moving Day. The warm Arizona sun poked through the window as Banjo slept on his favorite yellow chair with the extra fluffy pillows surrounding him. He liked to scratch the pillows and play with the fringe around the edges, and he enjoyed spending most of his day in this very spot. He didn't even mind sharing it with his family, especially his best friends, Lexi and Sammy. Banjo was a gray cat with white paws and the tip of white on his tail. He hoped nothing would ever change because he was happy with everything just the way it was. He just wished the loud truck noise outside would go away, and that someone would answer the doorbell so he could go back to sleep. Finally, the door was open, but suddenly strangers were picking up furniture and taking it outside. Banjo was confused and didn't care for strangers, so he jumped off the comfy chair and ran upstairs to find Lexi and Sammy. They were putting their dolls and toys in a box and taping the boxes shut. As Banjo began playing in one of the empty boxes, the girls burst into giggles. Banjo loved to hear them laughing and forgot all about the noisy people downstairs. A voice soon came from the hallway, saying it was time to pack up and get ready for the move. Lexi picked Banjo out of the box and gave him a big hug and told him he needed to stay out of the way so the movers could load everything onto the truck. Banjo wasn't sure what was happening, but when he went back downstairs, he saw that the front door was wide open and his big yellow chair with the extra fluffy pillows were gone. Slowly, Banjo walked over to the open door and waited for someone to shout to him to get back inside. When no one did, he quickly ran out the door and noticed that the noisy truck was sitting right in front of their house. He walked over to a cactus and rubbed up against it. "Ouch! Ouch!" Banjo cried. As he jumped away from the cactus and walked toward the truck, he glanced inside and saw his big yellow chair sitting way in the back with boxes surrounding it. Banjo was glad to see his chair, so he jumped in and climbed over the other furniture and boxes to get to it. He curled up on the chair and fell asleep. As he dreamed of boxes and giggles, he could hear Sammy calling his name. "Banjo! Banjo!" Banjo was awakened by the movers' voices talking to girls' parents. He heard one of them say it would be a 3-day drive and they would meet the family at their new home in Nashville. Banjo was beginning to worry. Were Lexi and Sammy moving away? Were they going to take him with them? Banjo knew he needed to find them and make sure they took him with them to their new home. He jumped from the big yellow chair and started climbing over the furniture and boxes to get out of that noisy truck. As he was climbing around, he heard Lexi and Sammy both yelling his name, and he realized that of course they wouldn't move without him. They were best friends after all. Before Banjo could reach for the door, he slipped from a box, and as he was climbing back up, he saw the sliding door begin to close, and then it was completely dark. Even though Banjo was meowing as loudly as he could, "Ow! Ow! Ow!" no one could hear him. The movers jumped in front of the truck and they drove away, not knowing that Banjo was in the back. Lexi and Sammy continued yelling his name, "Banjo!" and searching for him around the neighborhood. "Oh, Banjo! Banjo!" They didn't want to move without their best friend. Chapter 2. The Big Truck Parking Lot. Banjo stayed in his yellow chair as the truck traveled down the road for what seemed like forever. Occasionally, they would stop and the strangers would get out of the truck for a while, and then they would take off again. Banjo was beginning to get hungry and hoped that the door would open soon so he can find some food. While he waited, he thought of his family and wondered if they were in Nashville yet. Banjo hoped that he would be able to find him, and he remembered the mover saying they would meet the family in 3 days. He knew if he stayed with these strangers, he would see his family again. He just wished he knew how much longer they had to drive. After what felt like days in the darkness, the next stop came and Banjo heard the door open. Banjo's eyes, but he didn't mind. He knew they must be in Nashville, and he was excited to see Lexi and Sammy. He inched towards the door, and when it was fully open, Banjo came face to face with one of the strangers. The man reached out to grab him, but Banjo was in a hurry to see his family, so he jumped from the truck and into a big parking lot. Banjo took off running and noticed that the parking lot was filled with lots of other big noisy trucks, like the one he had been stuck in for so long. There were many strangers everywhere, but Lexi and Sammy were nowhere to be found. Banjo could smell lots of different foods and thought he better eat something quickly and get back to the noisy truck with his big yellow chair so he could finally get to his family. The end, my kiddos. If you'd like to hear or read more of Banjo's adventures, you can find this book at Amazon.com. Thank you so much for joining me for story time, my little learners. Ciao for now.